This is Chase from Teamgate, and today we're going to be talking about our brand new Workflows feature. We've been getting a lot of questions from current clients on how to best use this new feature, so I've put together this video to share with you what Workflows is all about, and more importantly, how it can help you eliminate simple and repetitive tasks and let you spend more time selling. Workflows is a way to automate simple and repetitive tasks within Teamgate. It allows the platform to recognize what you need done within each stage of your sales process and ultimately keep you on track. There are three parts to each workflow. First, the trigger that causes the workflow to start, then the action, which is the result of the trigger being activated, and the filter, which adds more detailed criteria for that workflow trigger. The trigger is where each workflow starts. Whether this is an action done by you or your sales team, or by your lead or prospect. Once triggered, you can tell the platform what you'd like to happen next. And what happens when a workflow is triggered is called an action. An action can come in many forms, whether it's generating a task for you to call the respective lead or prospect, send an email, generate a meeting, and many others. This keeps you and your team on task, not letting any deal or lead within your Teamgate account slip through the cracks. Lastly, there are filters. Filters allow for even more specific parameters to be added within your workflow triggers, making sure certain criteria are met in order for that workflow to activate. This is especially helpful if you, for example, have a different sales process for various types of leads and deals that your company focuses on. Talking with the CEO rather than the general leadership team, create a filter for that. Need your inbound leads to be prioritized over your outbound ones? Again, the filter is where this is done. So let's go through a few examples to see all of this in action. So for this first example, let's say you have a contact form on your website. When anyone enters their information in this contact form, it's going to automatically generate a new lead for them in Teamgate. And it's really in your best interest to prioritize these warmer leads when they do come in. So let's create a workflow to make sure you're reaching out to them as soon as possible. First thing we're going to do is navigate to our workflow section within Teamgate. It's going to be on the top bar on the right-hand side. And then let's create a workflow. Give it a name. And we want this specific workflow to be triggered whenever a new lead is created. So that's exactly what we will select here. Leads and the new lead. But we only want this workflow to be triggered for new leads that come in through the contact form. And the filter is where we put in that information. So continue only if the source is the contact form. And you can add as many filters as you'd like to make this more specific. Lastly, we're going to input the action. So whenever this workflow is triggered, what do we want the subsequent action to be? So for this example, I'm going to create a task to call this specific lead. So I'm going to name the task, call new inbound lead through the contact form to give myself more contextual information before calling them. I'm going to have this task triggered due immediately. However, you can also have it triggered to be due an exact specific date and time, or at a set date, meaning 1 or 2 or 3 days, so on and so forth, after the workflow is triggered. I'm going to set the owner to myself. And there we have it. Last thing you need to do is make sure it's active. And so now whenever any new lead is generated through the contact form, you will automatically have a task created for yourself to call that new lead immediately. All right, so for this next example, we're going to be following along our previous one. So if we have a new lead that's created, we call that lead ultimately we do need to change the status of that lead to it being the second call or third email, or first meeting, second meeting, whatever your sales process looks like. What we want to focus on is creating tasks automatically for yourself when leads change statuses. So let's create one for the second status within our leads. Much like the previous example, we're still going to be focusing on leads for this workflow. So we're going to click leads, but instead of new lead, we're going to click status change. So whenever the status changes of these leads, you can have this workflow triggered. You can make that a blanket statement across all statuses, but for this example, we're going to be focusing on a specific status and a specific outcome for that status change. So we're going to select status this time is call and email to. And then the action, in our previous example, I created a task for myself to call that new lead. So let's go ahead and switch it up and create an email. Now this is a little bit different because I can select the specific template to go out. But in this case, I'm going to create a blank email for me to personally type out an email to send to this specific lead. And again, much like the previous example, all we need to do after creating the trigger, filter, and action is making sure that it's active. So for this last example, let's focus on something towards the later stages of our sales process, more specifically within the deals and deal pipeline section within Teamgate. Let's say for this example, I work on the partnerships team, and I want to create a workflow that prompts me to send a welcome email for anyone that enters the last stage in our partnerships pipeline, which is them actually confirming that they do want to be a partner of ours. So let's say welcome partner. So unlike the previous two examples where we were focusing on leads, now we are focusing on deals. And specifically when deals enter new stages. So whenever a deal enters a new stage, we want this workflow to be triggered. Not just any stage, however, I want this workflow only to be triggered when it enters the last stage in the pipeline. So we will click stage. And within our partnerships program, I want this stage to be partnership confirmed. So again, now just updating the workflow. This workflow is only going to be triggered when a deal enters the final stage, that is partnership confirmed. Now what I want to happen is I want to send them the welcome email that we already have a template for. And there we have it. Again, like the previous three examples, just make sure it's active. From the three examples we've gone through today, I hope you can now see the versatility of our workflows feature. And when my customers ask me which workflows they should create for themselves, I in turn ask them two questions that I recommend you ask yourself when thinking of what workflows to create for you and your team. The first question: what areas of your sales process are consistent across the team and require manual effort? The second question being, are there any points within your sales process where leads or deals tend to fall through the cracks? Answering these questions can give you some great direction in your efforts to create impactful workflows that can help your team stay on track and the platform keep you and your team accountable. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful, and happy selling.